Welcome to Life Happens, where Texans come to protect their legacy and prepare for the second half of life. Join your host, attorney Kim Hegwood with Hegwood Law Group, and our weekly guest as we navigate the challenges that emerge as life happens. Now here's your host, Kim Hegwood.
Good morning and welcome to Life Happens. It's with me, Kim Hegwood, and Lizette. I'm sure excited to have you back today. So I'm super glad you're here, and we're going to talk about something a little different today, right?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. So the company is Think Different Dementia, right?
Yes, ma'am.
But today we're going to talk about skills to care. But before we get into that, a lot of people, when you're thinking about, how can we help our loved ones? What all kind of things can we do to make, things easier on them? You're an occupational therapist, right?
Yes, I am. I'm trained as an occupational therapist in my background.
So how does an occupational therapist help someone with dementia?
I think that is a very good question. Occupational therapy, in its essence, looks at a person holistically. It looks at the whole person. It looks at their physical abilities. It looks at their emotional abilities. It looks at their cognitive abilities. It looks at their environment, and it puts it together holistically at whatever stage of life a person is in. So we, as occupational therapists, work in the whole spectrum, prenatal all the way through to some people working in hospice care, because our lives are different at different stages, right? So an occupational therapist is trained to look at all of those different things and put them together. So when we're working with people with dementia, not only are we looking at the cognitive changes, which there are obviously cognitive changes in dementia, we're also looking at the person's physical abilities. We're looking at their environment, which includes their care partner, spouse or child or whoever it is. And then we are trying to either, when people are going through dementia, there's a period of time when they can still learn information. And so when we're in that phase, we are still in the rehabilitation phase where we can facilitate changes, where we can make things better. So somebody's fallen, broken their hip, but they have an underlying dementia. We can work on those kinds of things to get them back to being independent again, versus, when the tipping point occurs and the person is not able to learn new information anymore. We go into what's called the habilitation phase, which is to try to prevent a decline and make things as easy or as accessible for the care partner to be able to keep the person either at home at their highest level of ability to function, or if that's not possible, in a facility, helping the person with dementia remain at their best level of ability. So in a nutshell.
So, all right, now that we've got that, so let's talk about Skills to Care. And tell me a little bit about the program.
So Skills2Care is a very specific occupational therapy based program. The only people who can do Skills2Care are occupational therapists. So that's the prerequisite. But it is an evidence based program. In other words, it is something that has been studied by lots of different studies to see whether it is an effective strategy or an effective treatment program for people with dementia and their care partners. What makes Skills2Care a little bit different is the emphasis is not really on the person with dementia. The emphasis is more on the care partner of the person with dementia, with the mindset behind that if we, yes, the person with dementia is central to the program, but the philosophy behind it is that if we have people who have dementia, and they're having what we call challenging behaviors, right? Things like shadowing, repetitive questioning, sexually inappropriate behaviors, whatever. These challenging behaviors that make it hard to take care of somebody at home. That if we work with the care partner, if we work with the care person helping that person, and we can figure out what's causing these things, then we can decrease the intensity and the frequency of these behaviors, because a person is always reliant on people with dementia, anybody. We have three things that we're always looking at, right? We're looking at the person themselves, you if you had dementia, me if I was your, daughter or spouse or whatever, taking care of you, and the environment that you live in. And so when all three of these things are working together well, we have decreased behaviors. We have decreased challenging behaviors. When one or more of these central parts are out of whack, then all of a sudden we have, somebody who is really struggling to function in their home environment. What makes it unique is that the program is designed to take place at home. It's in the person's own home with the people who love them and are providing their care. Um, I work as an occupational therapist in home health still. And so I can tell you, in a hospital, we see things and we think, oh, this person's going to be fine when they go home. But we don't know what the home looks like, right? And then you walk into the person's home. I'll use this. This is a physical example, but I have a patient right now who has an ankle fracture. She's non-weight bearing, not supposed to walk on it at all. And they sent her home because she said, I have a wheelchair, and yes, I can get to the bathroom. All right. So the first day I go see her, the woman is in the bathroom, no walker, no wheelchair, and no way to have gotten there without walking. I'm like,
Not good.
not good. I'm like, baby, you're gonna, you're not allowed to put weight on your leg. You're going to, cause yourself harm. But we can't see that when we're in the hospital, right? So when we are working with people with skills to care, we are in their homes with their care partner and then with the person with dementia. So it's mostly caregiver driven. And further, what it does is it's not me identifying. I don't identify what you want to work on. The program is set up that you identify what you want to work on. And it is a very specific checklist or assessment that we complete with the person who is helping the person that looks at everything. And for example, what's important to me, I come in as an OT and I'm looking at the environment. I might think this is the priority because it seems to be the thing that's bothering the person the most, right? But they come back and tell me, no, this is not important for me. I can handle that. But this that I don't think is important is super important to them. And so it looks at both the importance for the care partner as well as then the how difficult it is for the care partner. Something that's difficult for me to manage may not be difficult for them to manage. For example, I have a patient right now who I'm not doing the formal skills to care, but for her, incontinence and toileting, that was the big thing. So me going in and trying to work on transfers or other things is not necessarily what she needs or wants. She identified, I can't deal with my husband's incontinence. And so the care partner actually tells us where they want to start and how they want to do it. And so a couple of other things that are specific to it is what I've noticed when we do skills to care is it's designed to be done in 5 sessions, an introductory session, then the 3 sessions, and then a conclusion session. And we start with one problem at a time. So it's always going to be 5 sessions, 9 sessions, whatever it's going to be, because if there are more than one problem, we can do sequentially. But what I find is if you fix the one and you've just taught the person how to do it, they can do it on their own. They become empowered to be able to figure out how to manage all of these different changes that their loved one is going through.
That's awesome, because I think a lot of caregivers get really overwhelmed and stressed. And so I know from personal experience, it's, there's a lot of stuff going on, when you're trying to help or care for someone. And so So where do you find occupational therapists that are trained in the skills to care?
So that is actually, I had to go look that up again this morning. The challenge that we have is there are less than 100 of us right now
Oh, no.
in the whole United States. There are less than 100 occupational therapists that are trained in skills to care. Probably the best way is for people to actually email me, because I know kind of who the therapists are, but there's not actually a central place for people to go look and say, here, this person's trained in skills to care. It's a very new certification. It's only, I think, Rachel, who's the person who actually is doing the skills to care training and it comes from the university in a university in Pennsylvania called Jefferson University. So they've actually researched this, and people can go look at the Jefferson University website, but there's not a list of therapists that are trained. There are more therapists in Pennsylvania because they're attached to the school, but Rachel, the person who trained me, she has a list, and I probably have access to her, which is going to be easier for people to just contact me if they're interested. It is something that Medicare will reimburse, but it is also something that can be done as a consultative model. So because there's so few of us currently in the United States, finding someone in your area may be a little harder, but you can do some consultation. I've done it virtually with people I live in South Carolina. I've done it with somebody in Missouri. I've done it with people who live further away from me here in South Carolina where I couldn't get to their homes. So there are definitely different ways that we can do it, but the easiest would be to just email me.
So how is this different from traditional treatments and strategies?
So I think and I had to kind of write this down a little bit. I think the biggest difference, oops, bang your microphone, that's not good. The biggest difference is that the care partner is the central constraint. It looks at the care partner first. So if you think about most people have flown, right? And so the three spheres that this is looking at is the care partner, the person with dementia, and then the environment. When you are taking care of somebody with dementia, when you're taking care of anybody, when you're taking care of a child, when you first have a baby, what does everybody do when somebody has a baby? Everybody brings meals, right? Why do people bring meals? Because I don't have time to cook and clean and do all of that. I'm taking care of a baby, right? So with people with dementia, what we forget is that there is a hierarchy of needs first. We first have to make sure the environment is taken care of. Then we make sure that the person providing the care is taken care of. That's the example of when you're on an airplane and they do the safety check at the beginning, right? They tell you, if the airplane goes down and the oxygen masks go down, what do? You don't stick it on the person first, you stick it on yourself. Why? Because if you do that and the plane goes down and you've lost consciousness, nobody can help you. So you have to take care of yourself first. And Skills to Care has that emphasis on taking care of the care partner. It works on education. There's a thing called the caregiver readiness to change. It uses that to say, okay, this person is not ready to change yet. They need basic information. They don't understand what dementia is. They don't understand the process. They don't understand at all where we are, and that's called pre-contemplation. Then there's the next stage where people are starting to be aware there's a problem, no pun intended, Houston, there's a problem, right? So people are aware there's a problem, but they're not ready yet to they're not ready to change anything about their problem. Well, me coming in like a bulldozer trying to make these changes is not going to be effective because the person isn't ready to hear the information. So that's called pre-contemplative. Then a care person is the next phase at a contemplation phase, right? They're ready to change. They know there's a problem and they recognize I got to do something. I can't keep doing what's the old story? You keep what's the definition of insanity? Doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. Well, that's where we come in when they're ready, because now they're ready to hear what I have to say. It looks very specifically at how the care partner is communicating with the person with dementia. And so I will use an example of a dear friend of mine, actually, and her mom was one of my case studies when I did my certification. Her mom's name was Alma. She just recently passed away, and Debbie is my friend. And I went to her, and Debbie has given me permission to share her story. And I went to their house to do the Skills to Care presentation, and it was interesting because one of the factors of Skills to Care is to really look at how the person is communicating with the person with dementia. And Debbie is wonderful and did a phenomenal job with her mom. But as I was there, I was kind of watching her a little bit, and I'm like, no wonder mom's having a little bit of difficulty, because Debbie would go in, and in her desire to honor her mom, she would ask her questions, like repetitive questions. Do you want this? Do you want that? Do you want the blind open? Do you want the light on? Do you want this book? Do you want your glasses? Do you want this? Like it was like a machine gun fire of questions, and her mom would get like, and I'm like, Debbie. And so part of my training with her was when she would go in to talk to her mom, because Debbie didn't recognize that she was doing this. Every time she said, do you want to, I tapped her on the shoulder. Like I literally touched her every time. And she stopped after about a minute. She stopped. She's like, whoa, I never noticed it. So working with the care partner on how they are communicating is central. So that makes it a big difference from a lot of other philosophies. Basic occupational therapy philosophy is to go in and work with that person and make them as independent as possible, which is fine, and it's a great thing to do when you can still do it. But most of the people who are having really challenging behaviors are not at that point anymore. They cannot change. We have to change. And so the emphasis with Skills to Care is to change the environment, to change the caregiver or the care provider, and then make sure that we have taken care of the person with dementia. Are they tired? Are they hungry? Because they cannot communicate those things to me. So what are the triggers for these behavior? But our goal is not to change that person. It's to change everything around that person, to then make them be at their highest ability to function.
Well, Lizette, that tells me everything I needed to know about why I would want a Skills to Care occupational therapist. How does someone find you? So if they want to get more information, maybe if they're listening to the podcast and they'd like to get certified, so how do they find you?
So if an occupational therapist wants to get certified, they can reach out to me and I can put them in charge. I can put them in contact with where to get certified. It is a 30-hour certification process. It takes several months because you have to do several case studies. It's not just a course that you take and say, you go to courses, right, where you just sit there and you go to a course, you get a piece of paper afterwards. It's not that type of a certification course. It's a hands-on. You have to do certain case studies, certain amount of case studies, and present them in order to actually become certified. So it is definitely a time commitment, but it is well worth doing. I learned so much. So for an occupational therapist, if they were listening, they can reach out to me. They can, text me or email me. Anybody can go to my website, thinkdifferentdementia@gmail.com. On the top right-hand corner, there's a place where they can schedule, a free call. And so anybody can get a hold of me that way. They can just schedule a call and we can talk. If people are interested in just more general education on dementia, I do have a Facebook group called Think Different Dementia Education Group, where the purpose behind that is education. I just educate people in the group. I try to answer people's questions. Those programs are put on the YouTube channel for people to watch. I do a lot of education and courses, and I have a bunch of stuff that I send to people when they ask me for it. But so yeah, that's how to get a hold of me.
Perfect. And Lizette, thanks so much for being on the show today. And I look forward to talking to you again soon.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so very much, Ms. Kim.
Thanks for tuning in to this week's episode of Life Happens with Kim Hegwood. Be sure to tune in every Thursday at 10 a.m. wherever you listen to your podcast as we navigate through the challenges that emerge as life happens. The content of this podcast does not establish an attorney-client relationship or constitute attorney-client privilege, legal, medical, financial, or any other professional advice.